Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Episode 7, The Arena of Carnage. And I have to say, this is probably the best episode of the season so far. It's the first episode of the season I'd probably say was a just objectively good episode. I thought it was pretty good. The reason I thought it was so good was that one, it was plot focused. There were some very nice character moments as we went on. We were introduced to a new character that felt important, and just a lot of stuff happened. If there was any negative to the episode, it was just a lot of stuff happened very quickly, and you're kind of left wondering about a couple of things. But for this show, this is definitely on the higher end of the episodes that they've put out, especially recently. And it's obviously just a notable episode because the turtles steal back the first piece of the black hole generator. And in addition to that, we get this pretty cool gladiator kind of episode where they're captured trying to sneak aboard the Triceratops ship and are sent to fight in the arenas. And it's there they meet a Triceratops traitor who is basically their arena champion, as Zeno, and he gives them some advice, and then it's revealed that they have to fight him at the end. So it covered a lot of ground here. I almost would have been happy if they had maybe said okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this arena. We're going to have a tournament or something like that, where we're going to have the turtles maybe all individually have to fight their way through a bracket or something like that, and we get to see a bunch of the other competitors, and you slowly introduce Zeno in as well, and they get to know him as it went on. Just because the show doesn't have a lot of plot, I feel like they maybe could have gone down that road if they wanted to, made a little bit of an arena tournament and spent a bit of time here. So in that sense, it's an arc they probably could have converted into 5 or 6 episodes, but they did it all in one, which was good in some ways, not so good in others. But it's still, as I said, very good episode. The action, I still think, especially against the Triceratons, is a little bit weird in that it's always going to be the case that the turtles can never really fight the Triceratons really effectively one-on-one because they're so big and so much stronger than them. So it means that the fights between the turtles and the Triceratons are never all that interesting, especially during the little fight sequence we got between the turtles and Zeno. It was so one-sided you could barely call it a fight. They obviously managed to take out a few Triceratons throughout this episode, but never really coming across as incredibly effective in combat. So that's why I think that doing some sort of an arena tournament would have actually been a cool idea, to get to see each turtle individually fight against someone. Now, they obviously went more for the giant creature type thing rather than a bunch of individual smaller opponents that have been captured and they all have their own unique fighting style. But still, the fight scene with the first giant creature with the weak spot that Zeno warned them about was it was again one of those things where the turtles just barely stayed in the fight. They got tossed around at the start, and then the only real skill shown in the fight from them was Donnie, just before he's about to be eaten, throwing his staff into the creature's weak spot and killing it. So there were a few weird moments where the Emperor was saying they're more skilled than I thought, when there was only one moment of skill in the entire fight, and that was the finishing blow. It just means that we're not getting a whole lot of even fights. The fights tend to not have a lot of intensity because a lot of them just the turtles getting knocked around, and then they have a slight comeback, and there's not much to them. So there's been moments when the fights have been very intense. Splinter, Shredder, Turtles versus Shredder, but just here with the Triceratons being the main enemies, I'm worried that we're not really going to get any good fight scenes going forward. But we will have to see. But yeah, it was interesting. Zeno gave us a little bit of backstory on who he is, just saying that he opposes the Emperor's rule because he really doesn't like the idea that the Triceraton are using a black hole generator to take out planets from a distance, whereas you can see just from the arena that they are very kind of battle honorable people who like to fight 1-to-1. So he sees the Emperor as being obsessed with like the Krang and like no, just as bad as them, just using technology to do everything that they want, and it's not the Triceraton way. They should just go and invade Earth and fight if they want to do that, but he doesn't necessarily agree with that. So it gave him an interesting character in terms of being like he's an honorable Triceraton who went against the flow and was also captured. But yeah, like there was, they definitely created a bit of drama towards the end, and that there was this friendship growing between the two, even though they never really got to see each other outside of the turtles roughly getting to see Zeno's feet. Um, and him giving them pieces of advice. So the final basically match for freedom coming down to him versus them was an interesting one in that you see that he's not a villain, but he was willing to kill them because he believes in like a kind of trial by battle sort of thing. So, and then when it came down to it, he didn't finish them off and turned against the Triceraton Empire. So that was an interesting moment just to see the turtles and his brief friendship with them, how it formed. He could see how honorable they were and their quest for change, and was kind of willing to go along with them, even if it meant putting himself in danger. But yeah, his own fights with his own people was actually quite good. Just seeing that he is, even among the Triceratons, like a very powerful one of their species. So, really impressive in that sense. That if there was ever a fight between the Emperor and Zeno, Zeno would probably win that. So that's interesting in and of itself. And you know, it sort of hints that perhaps there is a little bit more to the backstory of how this specific emperor came into power, and how he's maybe changing the inner workings of the Triceraton kind of system, and that they were all about battle and honor and stuff like that, but now they're more about technology. So there could be something like that, that they're being manipulated by the Krangs from inside, but we don't know the full details just yet. But this episode put in place a lot of interesting little things like that. Professor Honeycutt was captured. I thought they were setting up something very important there, in the sense of like they were asking him to basically create the weapon for them. So to some extent it would seem to suggest, I think, that given that we've gone back in time, that the original black hole generator only came into existence because Honeycutt in the first place put it together for them. And now it could be this thing revealed later on that he is now trying to make amends for what he did there by reversing time and making amends. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, or if that was something I was meant to take out of it. They haven't really brought up all that much the fact that they are trying to reverse time, and that they are technically in a period that has already happened. They just weren't involved in it. So, you're obviously wondering what exact approach to time travel is the show going to take, and I still think there's a little bit more to Honeycutt than we've been told. In that there's an obvious connection with him and the Triceratons. They seem to know who he is, want to capture him, and the fact that they want him to put it together suggests that otherwise they don't necessarily have a way to put it together on their own. So that's where I'm kind of getting the idea that perhaps he was the one who put it together in the first place. But in the comments, definitely let me know if you think that's a decent theory at all. Anything else to talk about? April used the little piece of the crystal that they got from the Aeons. We got a further explanation. I like the continuity that it came up immediately afterwards. She can use it to focus her psychic powers and allow her to use them more effectively. They didn't explain what she did towards the end of the episode, where she hopped out into space and just was glowing herself. I assume that was her kind of creating a bubble of air around herself with her psychic powers to allow her to breathe in space, or just maintain the air that she has in her. Um, Question how Casey was still breathing, or maybe it's just a case of she told everyone else to hold their breath and she used her own powers so that she could be a bit more active because her powers were dealing with her air problem. So that might be an explanation there, but it was just cool to get to see that okay, her training with Honeycutt is actually doing something. It is enhancing her power. There's a little line from April earlier on in the episode like the turtles are more stealthy than us. You know, we can't go, but I'm getting close. I like that one, just showing that she's still training in her kind of ninja ways, but is not quite at the turtles' level. They didn't do a great job at explaining how good the turtle stealth is, really, because they just ran up a corridor. They were looking dead ahead, and suddenly ran right into a Triceraton guard. It was very like odd and just like, okay, I get what you needed to do. You didn't have time to do a full stealth sequence. Have them get in really far and then get captured. You kind of had to get them captured very early, but it was just a little bit weird how that ended up working out. So there's that. Cool use of the weird kind of gravity technology to kind of put it in like a gravity bubble to keep the weight down, and that ended up being a shield for them when they were making their escape. Um, but yeah, that's about all there is really is to the episode. Will Zeno come back? I assume for sure we will see him again. Um, it just the way they set him up was very much like a Leatherhead type character, where like they're introduced to him, they become friends with him, they leave as he's fighting, but he does come back. I assume they'll do the same with Zeno. In that perhaps they might set him up to be like when they resolve all of this, the new Triceraton Emperor who actually has the real like the right view on how the species should be going forward, the right way to rule them, and stuff like that. So that could be interesting. And then Professor Honeycutt seems to know where to go next to get the next piece. So, you know, it was this was a good episode. You know, there was some nice little character moments. It was very plot focused, which I would definitely appreciate, and it's setting up what's coming next. I just hope the next episode is just as plot focused as this one, just to get a run of like good episodes. Because the last one was pretty good, it wasn't the best, but it was pretty good. This one was very good. I hope they just continue this little run they have going now and don't just immediately return to like weird episode, random planets, no, not much relation to the plot. So that's the review. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode, as well as what I've said here in the review. Other than that, thanks for watching, and bye.